families are meant to be safe havens, places where we grow, feel loved, and develop a sense of who we are. But for those raised in narcissistic family systems, the home can become a confusing and emotionally hazardous environment. This episode is about pulling back the curtain on a specific kind of dysfunction, the narcissistic family, where roles are rigid, emotions are manipulated, and love is often conditional. So, what exactly is a narcissistic family? It's not just a family with a difficult parent or a few tense holidays. A narcissistic family is structured around the emotional needs of one or more narcissistic individuals, often a parent, who demands control, admiration, and loyalty at the expense of everyone else. In these families, appearances matter more than authenticity, obedience is rewarded over honesty, and personal boundaries are routinely violated. At the core of this dynamic is a hidden emotional economy. Family members are unconsciously assigned roles to maintain the narcissist's fragile sense of self. Some are elevated, others are diminished, but all are affected. These roles aren't just surface-level labels. They shape how children see themselves, how they relate to others, and how they carry their pain into adulthood. In today's episode, we'll explore the key roles that emerge in narcissistic families, like the golden child, the scapegoat, the lost child, and more. We'll unpack the psychological strategies behind these roles, the emotional toll they take, and how individuals can begin to understand, name, and ultimately heal from their experiences. Whether you're trying to make sense of your upbringing or supporting someone who is, this episode aims to shed light on a system that often thrives in silence. Let's begin the journey into the hidden dynamics of the narcissistic family. A narcissistic family is one where the needs of a parent, or sometimes both parents, dominate the emotional landscape of the household. At the heart of it is narcissism, a personality style marked by an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. But in a family system, narcissism doesn't exist in isolation. It shapes the entire emotional ecosystem. In these families, everything revolves around preserving the narcissist's image and emotional control. The parent may present as charming, successful, or self-sacrificing to outsiders, but behind closed doors, they can be critical, manipulative, dismissive, or emotionally unpredictable. The children's feelings, boundaries, and individuality are often overlooked or seen as threats to the narcissist's control. Because the narcissistic parent needs constant validation and control, they unconsciously, or sometimes deliberately, assign roles to their children, such as the golden child who reflects their glory, the scapegoat who absorbs blame, or the lost child who is emotionally neglected. These roles are not based on the children's true selves, but on what the parent needs them to be. The result is a family dynamic that looks functional on the outside, but is emotionally distorted within. Communication is often superficial or manipulative. Loyalty is demanded, not earned. Mistakes are punished, not learned from. And love is conditional, granted only when a child behaves in ways that support the narcissist's needs or narrative. This environment can leave deep psychological scars. Children raised in narcissistic families often grow up confused about their identity, struggle with low self-worth, and develop patterns of people-pleasing, self-silencing, or emotional detachment. Understanding the narcissistic family structure is a vital first step in recognizing how these patterns form, and more importantly, how they can be unlearned. At the center of every narcissistic family is a parent who dictates the emotional tone of the household. This parent may appear confident, charismatic, or self-sacrificing to the outside world. But within the family, they often operate from a deep, unacknowledged insecurity that drives their need for control, admiration, and emotional dominance. The narcissistic parent sees their children not as individuals with needs and feelings of their own, but as extensions of themselves, tools for validation, praise, or blame. Their love is conditional, based on how well a child reflects or supports their idealized self-image. When a child complies, they may be rewarded with praise or favoritism. When they express independence or criticism, they are met with withdrawal, punishment, or emotional manipulation. This parent often distorts reality to maintain their superiority. They may gaslight, making others question their perceptions or emotions. They may triangulate, playing family members against one another to maintain control. And they frequently avoid accountability, deflecting blame onto others, especially their children. Because their emotional needs always take precedence, the household becomes unstable and unpredictable. Children may walk on eggshells, constantly gauging the parent's mood to avoid outbursts or criticism. Over time, this erodes the child's sense of self, as they learn to suppress their needs and feelings to stay safe or earn affection. There are also subtler versions of narcissistic parents, those who appear generous, nurturing, or selfless, but still make everything about themselves. They might over-identify with their child's successes, control through guilt, or demand emotional caretaking in return for love. In all cases, the narcissistic parent creates a dysfunctional environment where roles are rigid, authenticity is discouraged, and emotional survival becomes the top priority. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward healing the damage they leave behind. In the narcissistic family system, the golden child is the one who appears to have it all: attention, praise, approval. They're often held up as the perfect one, embodying the narcissistic parent's values, ambitions, or even unfulfilled dreams. But beneath the surface, the golden child isn't free. They're performing a carefully scripted role designed to serve the parent's emotional needs. Chosen for their loyalty, talents, or even birth order, the golden child becomes a living reflection of the parent's idealized self. They're rewarded when they succeed in ways that bolster the parent's ego: academics, sports, appearances, or charisma. But this praise is conditional. It's not based on the child's intrinsic worth, but on how well they maintain the image the parent wants to project. This role can be seductive. The golden child may internalize the belief that their value depends on being exceptional. Over time, they may lose touch with their authentic self, becoming hyper-focused on performance, perfectionism, and external validation. Emotionally, they may feel trapped. There's often intense pressure to uphold the family narrative and to remain loyal to the narcissistic parent, especially by staying silent about dysfunction. Speaking out or setting boundaries can be seen as betrayal, and when the golden child falters or seeks independence, they risk falling from grace, sometimes even being recast as the scapegoat. In adulthood, former golden children may struggle with identity confusion, anxiety, imposter syndrome, or difficulty forming genuine relationships. Because they were taught to value themselves only when excelling, rest, vulnerability, or failure can feel threatening. Despite the privileges this role appears to offer, the golden child's experience is often one of emotional entrapment. True healing begins when they start to separate who they are from who they were told they had to be. If the golden child is the one who can do no wrong, the scapegoat is the one who can do no right. In a narcissistic family, this child becomes the emotional dumping ground, the target for blame, criticism, and projected shame. While the golden child props up the narcissistic parent's fragile ego, the scapegoat absorbs everything the parent cannot tolerate in themselves. This role is rarely chosen. Often, the scapegoat is the child who resists control, questions the family narrative, or simply doesn't conform to the narcissist's expectations. Their independence, sensitivity, or authenticity may be seen as threats. Rather than being celebrated, these traits are punished. The scapegoat is blamed for family problems, labeled as difficult, selfish, or rebellious. Their mistakes are magnified, their successes minimized, and their feelings dismissed. This constant targeting can lead to deep-rooted shame, self-doubt, and confusion about their worth. Ironically, the scapegoat is often the healthiest member of the family. By refusing to pretend, they see the dysfunction for what it is. But because the family system is built on denial and image, the truth teller becomes the enemy. Many scapegoats leave home carrying emotional wounds that show up in adulthood as low self-esteem, people-pleasing, or chronic self-criticism. Others may develop strong boundaries and resilience, but often at the cost of emotional isolation, mistrust, or hyper-independence. Despite the pain of this role, the scapegoat has one powerful advantage: they're more likely to seek truth, healing, and personal growth. Because they've never been fully accepted by the family system, they're also freer to break from it. Healing begins when the scapegoat realizes they were never the problem. They were the mirror the family couldn't bear to look into. If you're resonating with what you're hearing, if parts of this feel painfully familiar, you're not alone. There's strength in naming these patterns, and healing doesn't have to be a solo journey. If this episode is helping you see your story more clearly, consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. And if you're ready to go deeper, follow or subscribe for more content on healing, boundaries, and emotional recovery. Your story matters, and your healing is valid. The invisible child, also known as the lost child, is the one who slips through the cracks of the narcissistic family. They aren't showered with praise like the golden child, nor targeted like the scapegoat. Instead, they're emotionally neglected, rarely seen, heard, or acknowledged. Their silence becomes their survival strategy. Often quiet, compliant, and self-sufficient, the invisible child learns early that asking for attention leads nowhere, or worse, to criticism or punishment. So they retreat inward, escaping into books, imagination, or isolation. Their goal becomes simple: avoid conflict, stay unnoticed, and stay safe. Because they don't challenge the narcissistic parent's control or demand emotional engagement, they're largely ignored. But this invisibility comes at a cost. As adults, lost children may struggle with emotional intimacy, low self-worth, and a haunting sense of disconnection from themselves and others. They may feel forgotten, not just by their family but by life itself. Healing for the invisible child begins by recognizing that their needs mattered, even if no one ever met them. Reclaiming their voice, their desires, and their place in the world is a powerful act of self-reclamation. In the chaos of a narcissistic family, the mascot, sometimes called the clown, takes on the role of comic relief. This child learns to diffuse tension and distract from conflict through humor, charm, or light-heartedness. On the surface, they seem playful and carefree, but underneath they often carry deep anxiety and emotional pain. The mascot senses the family's dysfunction, but may not understand it consciously. What they do understand is that laughter gets attention, breaks the tension, and sometimes even protects them from criticism. So they become the entertainer, the one who keeps the mood light and everyone distracted from the truth. Unfortunately, this role can come at the cost of emotional development. The mascot may struggle to express serious feelings or to be taken seriously by others. Their emotional needs often go unrecognized, even by themselves, buried under a mask of humor. As adults, mascots may use comedy or caretaking to hide discomfort, avoid vulnerability, or manage anxiety. Their healing begins when they allow themselves to be seen not just as funny or likable, but as real, complex, and worthy of care. In narcissistic families, the roles children play, golden child, scapegoat, lost child, mascot, may seem fixed, but in reality, they can shift over time. These roles aren't chosen. They're survival strategies shaped by the needs of the narcissistic parent and the emotional landscape of the home. A child may begin as the golden child, but fall out of favor and become the scapegoat if they assert independence. Another might start as the lost child, only to take on the mascot role when humor becomes a tool for coping. Siblings can also be pitted against each other, with one elevated and the other devalued, only for those positions to reverse later. These roles are adaptive responses to dysfunction, not reflections of the child's true character. Each role represents an attempt to secure love, safety, or approval in an emotionally unpredictable environment. They're masks worn to navigate a system that punishes authenticity. Understanding this fluidity helps survivors release self-blame. These roles weren't choices, they were reactions. Healing begins when individuals recognize these patterns and start rewriting the roles they were forced to play, choosing instead to live from a place of truth, not survival. The effects of growing up in a narcissistic family don't end in childhood. They often persist well into adulthood, shaping how individuals see themselves, relate to others, and navigate the world. The emotional environment in such a family is typically unsafe, unpredictable, or conditional, which can have deep, lasting consequences. One of the most significant impacts is a fragmented sense of self. Children are often forced to abandon their authentic identity in order to fit into the roles assigned by the narcissistic parent. As adults, they may struggle with chronic self-doubt, low self-esteem, or an inability to trust their own perceptions and feelings. Emotional suppression is another common consequence, because expressing needs, anger, or sadness may have been punished or ignored. Survivors often disconnect from their emotions or become hypervigilant about others' moods. This can lead to anxiety, depression, or emotional numbness. Relationship patterns are also affected. Many adult children of narcissists find themselves drawn to toxic dynamics, repeating roles like caretaker, peacekeeper, or fixer. Boundaries are either too rigid or non-existent, making healthy connection difficult. Additionally, there may be deep-seated guilt or shame, especially if the person internalized blame for the family's dysfunction. Even positive life changes can trigger feelings of unworthiness or fear of abandonment. Healing is possible, but it begins with awareness. By naming these patterns, understanding their roots, and seeking support through therapy or community, survivors can begin to untangle themselves from the past and reclaim a life built on self-trust and genuine emotional connection. Healing from a narcissistic family system is not just about understanding what happened, it's about reclaiming the self that was silenced, minimized, or reshaped to fit someone else's needs. Recovery is deeply personal and rarely linear, but it begins with one powerful step: recognition. When survivors start to see their experiences clearly, often for the first time, they break the spell of denial that kept them trapped. Therapy can be a transformative tool, especially modalities like trauma-informed therapy, inner child work, or EMDR. These approaches help individuals reconnect with their authentic emotions, challenge internalized beliefs, and safely process past pain. Another key aspect of healing is reparenting oneself, learning to provide the validation, care, and protection that were missing in childhood. This might include setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and allowing space for grief over what was lost. Survivors often find strength in community, whether through support groups, books, or connecting with others who understand the unique challenges of growing up in a narcissistic family. Feeling seen and heard without judgment can be profoundly healing. Ultimately, healing is about freedom from the roles once imposed, from guilt that was never yours, and from patterns that no longer serve you. It's about building a life that's aligned with your truth, your needs, and your voice. You are not broken, you adapted, and now you have the power to become whole. Understanding narcissistic family dynamics isn't just about looking back, it's about moving forward with clarity and intention. When we name the roles we were forced into, we begin to loosen their grip. When we recognize the dysfunction, we stop internalizing it as our fault. That awareness is the first crack in the cycle, and from there, healing becomes possible. Breaking free doesn't always mean cutting ties, but it does mean redefining relationships, setting boundaries, and reclaiming your emotional space. It means choosing truth over denial, self-worth over performance, and connection over control. Healing from a narcissistic family is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about unlearning what hurt you and learning what heals you. Each small act of self-compassion, each moment of truth-telling, each boundary you set, that's you rewriting the story. You are not the role you were given. You are not the reflection of someone else's brokenness. You are your own person, and you have the right to live from that place, with honesty, dignity, and peace. Thank you for joining this exploration. Wherever you are on your journey, know this: breaking the cycle doesn't start with them, it starts with you.